Am I the asshole for cutting my kid's day out short? I've been looking after my daughter, 13, alone for the past few months because my wife is stranded abroad and can't get back into the country due to COVID. It's been pretty good mostly because I've been able to work from home. Yesterday, however, I had a critical work meeting about a major contract, so to avoid distractions I sorted out a play date with one of my daughter's friends for the day, and I dropped her to the friend's house about an hour away. I drive over, I drop her and drive back by about 10:30. I'm about 20 minutes into what should be a 2/3 contract negotiation when I get a text from my kid asking if we can get McDonald's on the way back. Now, that was a code message I'd said to her saying that if you're feeling uncomfortable with the situation or what's going on, text or call me or mum that we'll come and get you wherever you are, and it wouldn't be obvious to anyone listening that she's trying to get away. I text her back, all okay, and she texts back saying, I'm very hungry, please get McDonald's on the way back. At this I'm worried, so I make my excuses to my partners, who were annoyed by my dipping out, and I start to rush over there. When I get there, everything is fine. Turns out, it was just a prank. She told her friend about the message and they both thought how cool it'd be if they made me drive back up again. I was incensed. I told her that was the end of the playdate and how disappointed I was. I also said we were going back home that instant. I made my apologies to the friend's mum and took my kid home. My daughter complained to her mum how I cut playdate short and now she wasn't allowed to go out with another friend the next week. My wife spoke to me and said she agrees with me that our daughter did wrong, but said it might be easier for everyone if we let her go out next week. I said no, and that not only had she made it hard to trust her again if she is in genuine danger, which is the worst thing, she also unknowingly lost my company 6 figures in lost business. I had to email my side of the presentation to a partner, and because it wasn't their area of expertise and they didn't impress the client. While I know that isn't directly her fault, I still believe that actions should have consequences, and it doesn't make me particularly vindictive to see those followed through. Not the asshole. Classic example of play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Your daughter knew that the code meant that she needed to leave right then and there and made you drive all the way back and skip work. She deserves her punishment and maybe even more. I'd ground my kid from several things for that. She knowingly made you think she was in a bad situation and had you drive all the way there when she knew you had important work. Don't budge on your decision. Not the asshole. It needs to stick in her mind that what she did was wrong, and that she shouldn't do it again. If there are no consequences, there's no incentive to listen to you. I'd just be straightforward and honest with her, tell her it broke your trust. 13-year-olds can be frustrating, but most do feel remorse when they know they did something wrong. Not the asshole. I think this is actually very serious, and she needs to understand that. Not only because it makes it hard for you to know when she's in need of help, but because she needs to learn never to abuse the help and protection available to her in society at large. Prank calls to 911, false reports of harm done to her, all of these cause serious problems for the perpetrator and for others. The one thing I would say is make sure she understands the problem. It would be easy for her to forget what she's supposed to learn from this and focus on the punishment itself. Not the asshole. If she gets away with it, she won't learn anything from it. I'm tired of parents who don't appropriately discipline their kids. You're being a good parent. First, I love the code word setup. I think you need to explain to the friend's mom about what happened. The prank both girls pulled was so out of line, and both girls need to have a serious chat about what the real issue is. To me, both kids have probably led sheltered lives and really don't get why having the "save me now" phrase is so important. I think you need to revisit the times to use the phrase and explain that, like when you call 911 for a non-emergency, there are consequences. Totally not the asshole. You say the loss of the 6-figure contract isn't directly her fault, but it kinda is. And I would honestly explain that to her. On the one hand, look, your safety was absolutely more important to me than this much money. Without a thought I risked that to make sure you are safe, but on the other, that's what your prank cost us. Was it worth it? Should I believe you next time and risk losing out on so much again at the risk that it's just a prank? If she's still complaining about not being allowed to go out next week, then she hasn't at all understood yet what she's done. And rather than just punish her, I think you should make sure she also understands how much she fucked up here. Not the asshole. She has to learn you can't cry wolf and that her actions affect a lot more than just her or the immediate circumstances. She's old enough to understand action equals consequence and put it together, unlike a toddler who doesn't quite have that level of cognition. I'm not sure I'd mention the money factor to her if you haven't already, but mostly because I could that being turned around and manipulated by her. I'm not saying that's her nature, but sometimes kids come to their own conclusions, right or wrong, and insist it's reality. Also, your wife would be teaching her that you two won't follow through on your punishment. She's at a critical age where she needs to learn you two mean what you say and that you won't cave. I'm gonna get downvoted for this, but I think you are the asshole for not punishing her more. This seems pretty heinous to me. She made you drive an hour thinking she was in trouble and cost your company 6 figures? You could have lost your job. This is bad behavior that will have even bigger consequences if she continues as she gets older. Fake 911 calls, false reports of abuse or assault. I wish you luck. Not the asshole. If I did that, I would be instantly slapped on the back of the head and be grounded for a week. She lost your company 6 figures, which might translate to you getting a pay cut. She needs to learn that her actions have consequences, like you said, so don't allow her to go out. Not the asshole. She needs to learn not to cry wolf. She's at the age for acting out, but she's also old enough to take an important tool for her safety seriously. Not the asshole. Remind your wife about story of the boy who called wolf. She needs to learn that it is never okay to do that kind of prank. Not the asshole. She needs to understand what she did was wrong. It's just like the boy who cried wolf. She needs to learn that her actions have consequences. Not the asshole. It's not just that you had to leave work and rush back over to make sure she was okay, it's that you were worried sick the whole time that she wasn't. That's not a very funny prank, and she should face the consequences for treating a coded phase meant only for emergencies as though it were some kind of game and not the serious thing that it is. Not the asshole. She needs to learn a tough lesson here and be grateful that you've even got a code for when she might be too uncomfortable to say what she really needs. You're doing the right thing. Not the asshole. The easy option of just allowing her to go out with another friend would just be lazy parenting. She has to face the consequences of her actions. Also, she is 13, so she knows you were working. Not the asshole. Follow through with your plan. Actions have consequences and she needs to learn that. You should tell her of the impact it had on your job, and explain that work is not something you joke about. Not the asshole. Given the outcome, I would be saying that for the foreseeable future she needs babysitting by a trusted adult whenever you are doing something that important. It isn't something that can happen twice, so you have to make sure it doesn't. The fact they did it together is disturbing. Both of them thought this was okay? I think a little discussion on peer pressure and standing up for yourself can be sprinkled into the punishment. Daughter, 13. Not the asshole. 13 is way old enough to understand the importance of work meetings as well as what a prank is. Not the asshole. My mom and I had a code like that when I was a kid and it saved my life. You're a good parent for having something like that in place, and your kid should not abuse that. It's the parent-child equivalent of prank calling 911. It's for emergencies only. My daughter complained to her mom how I cut play dates short and now she wasn't allowed to go out with another friend the next week. Not the asshole, but it seems like your daughter still doesn't realize why what she did was wrong. You should really talk to her about it, in my opinion. Not the asshole. Tell your kids about the boy who cried wolf. You have codes for a reason, and the prank was not fun, you assumed danger. Not the asshole. I think you're handling this very well. Your wife isn't there and is only getting the story secondhand. Regardless, it isn't rocket science that crying wolf and there is no wolf is wrong. Your daughter needs to suffer the consequences of her actions, and not be rewarded. Keep up the good job, Dad. Not the asshole. In fact, you're being too easy on her. It is her direct fault your company lost revenue because you weren't able to do your part. She abused an emergency system you set up as a prank, making you drive 2 hours round trip needlessly. Personally, I would take her cell phone and ground her for a month at minimum. No phone and no friends. Alright kiddo, text me asking for McDonald's and I'll come take you home. Kiddo, texts asking for McDonald's. Op, takes her home. Kiddo, shocked Pikachu. Yikes. Not the asshole op. I would defo have a sit down with her. Explain to her why what she did was so wrong and that you abandoned a very important work responsibility to come to her rescue. That as a parent you put her before everything else only to find out she abused a safety system and broke your trust. That affected your work massively and that, whilst she is a kid and doesn't understand adult responsibility, she needs to understand that her actions will have lasting impacts and she needs to be aware of these consequences. Not the asshole. I had the code word phrase with my mum and dad, scones on Saturday. To use as a get out and pick me up ASAP and I would never abuse it. That got me out of dates gone wrong, parties where I felt unsafe and it showed how much we trusted one another. He trusted me to reach out when I needed him and I trusted him to have my back. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. She's young but not too young to learn actions have consequences. Not the asshole. Has she read The Boy Who Cried Wolf? Not the asshole, and only a week? Not the asshole. She's 13, not 7 and should know better, but hell, we all did stupid things as teenagers. I normally am not a fan of grounding, but in this particular case it's reasonable. She used her playdate to mess with you, so she isn't allowed playdates for a week. Sounds fair to me, but make sure you explain to her, calmly, why you're upset and that this never can happen again. It's much easier for teenager to accept a punishment if they know the reason why. If else they just get frustrated and turn against you instead of learning. Not the asshole. I think grounded for 1 week is too easy. I say here comes extra chores, write me an essay on kids that are abducted, and a long GGGGG lecture. I think groundings are fine, but my mom Danny tannered the crap out of me and as an adult I really appreciate that now. I think she needs to learn a genuine lesson. I'm sorry that you lost a potential business contract, but you are an awesome dad. Not the asshole. Absolutely under no circumstances should she think that pranks involving her safety are allowed. You absolutely did the right thing. I'm gonna sound like a boomer, but prank culture has gone too far. She needs to know that you will not allow this kind of behavior. Yeah, she's just a kid, and she's just testing boundaries, but that's exactly why you have to shut it down quickly. I do think you should have an adult conversation with her. Tell her exactly why this prank was so dangerous. Give her examples if needed. Next time she texts you the code, you might not respond so fast and that's dangerous. Not the asshole. Yikes, certainly a couple of 13-year-olds should know better than to do something this dumb. I'm pretty surprised they weren't able to conjure enough brain cells between them to figure that out, and then keep it up while you drive all the way back? Jesus, I'd be wild. So, you're not in the least bit wrong. Your daughter needs to have a nice long uncomfortable chat about responsibility, trust, acting one's age, not being a dipshit, idiots who are wolf, etc. 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 But girl has sown this shit, so now she's gotta reap. Opening parenthesis colon. Not the asshole. Let her know that she breached your trust, but since she's 13 just how much money you dipping out that meeting cost because you believed her to be in danger. Then maybe do some calculation how long it would take for her to pay that back to the company with her allowance. Not saying she has to pay it back. Just to let it sink in how much that is. It will show her two things, that you will drop even very important stuff if you believe her to be in danger, but also that when you do that someone else can lose money and for a prank that's expensive. She should be grounded for at least 6 months considering the cost this was to others for her prank emo. Not the asshole. I think you're being very fair in your punishment. A week is not very long. Your daughter needs to learn there are consequences to her actions and backing out now wouldn't help with that. Your wife might be trying to help and giving you an easy out but I think you're definitely in the right. Not the asshole. This is the boy who cried wolf. She needs to know you'll always believe her and put her safety first when it is as serious as safety. Equally, she makes a false accusation, and it got escalated to the police, she would end up with a prison sentence. She needs to learn that her actions have consequences and you need to sit her down and explain it. Also explain the consequences and your career etc. and that you don't mind risking losing your job or getting disciplined if she was in danger. But if she is okay with prancing you frequently that your job gets affected, then she is okay with you potentially losing your home and lifestyle. She's 13, old enough to know better. Not the asshole. Actions have consequences. NTA, but don't keep it from her. Let her know she caused the loss of income, which means people noticed at work and that loss of business might impact her gifts, holidays, etc. if she cries wolf. Also, if she knows that she is not allowed to go out with a friend next week, you need to stick to this, otherwise she will then know you will cave with your punishments. Not the asshole. Your kid is very young and they do dumb shit, but she's gotta learn that's not okay. Not the asshole. I actually think you're being lenient on her. She not only broke your trust and faked an emergency situation. She abused the system you have in place to keep her safe, and she could have potentially put your career and financial security at risk. She caused a six-figure loss, so a pretty pricey prank. If it were me, she'd be completely grounded and would lose her phone for a while too. Not the asshole. This sounds like perfect parenting. Not only do you have a system in place so that you can provide help in an emergency, you are using a suitable punishment for violating that system. Not the asshole. His daughter is 13, not 8. This is horrible behavior and needs to be punished. Not the asshole. I would also let your daughter know about the contract loss. Not the asshole. Honestly, if this was me as a parent, the punishment would have exceeded this, so if anything, your daughter is lucky. That code could have meant life or death. There are news stories of kids saved because they ask strangers or other parents for their parents' safe words or code, and she abused it. How are you supposed to trust that the next McDonald's text isn't just another party trick to show her friends how fast you can get there? Also, I'm sorry about losing the client, but gotta give you big kudos for dropping what you did because your daughter used that code even if it was a false alarm. You're a great parent for setting up that safety net and for jumping on it right away. Not the asshole. I believe that your daughter's actions directly affected the loss of revenue for your company. It may directly affect your job. At 13, she's old enough to understand that a code word or phrase cannot be misused for fun and games with friends. She should also know that she shouldn't tell her friends the code. Had I made my dad lose six figures when I was 13, I don't think I'd be typing this today. Not the asshole. I see she liked Aesop's fable, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, a little too much. You won't take her seriously from now on, and that's her fault. Not the asshole. She deserves it. Though you also need to sit down and talk to her about the seriousness of the code. And why it is not something to joke about. Stick to your guns. The danger code is serious business and consequences are in order. In addition, she shared the danger code with outsiders, which violates the rules of the code. This is a serious matter and must be dealt with exactly as you are doing. Not the asshole.